Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us. For those who are sitting in the back in those fancy spaceship seats, if you want to come closer and talk to us, it would be much appreciated. No need to be shy. And then we're going to start. Welcome again to the panel discussion or more active talk event. Festival workers of all countries speak out on working conditions. First of all, thank you to the EFM and the Berlinale for having us, having this space and the time. My name is Skadi Leust. I'm a festival researcher, now a professor for production studies at the Film University Babelsberg Konrad Wolf in Potsdam, around the corner. I've been working on and with festivals, so in various capacities, with the Hamburg Queer Film Festival, being on the board, and also now on the board of an association, a network of queer film festivals in Germany. But I've also worked academically on festivals for a long time. That's how I became part of the initiative. Then we have next to me Grit Lemke, who has been for a long time programmer of Doc Leipzig, left last year. We're gonna hear more about that later on. And she is one of the founding members of the initiative, so she's gonna tell us more about the initiative and how it all started. Then next to Grit, we have Daniel Ebner, who is the co-founder of the Forum of Austrian Film Festivals and also the festival director of VIS, Vienna Shorts Festival. So he can tell us more about what the Forum is doing, and they did a little study and have some numbers that we're going to hear about, and can also talk about whether that is a different interest being a person on a board of a larger association and a festival director and a festival worker. And last but not least, Adrienne Boros. She's administration manager of the Berlinale and will tell us a bit more about the new developments behind the scenes of this big festival. First of all, thank you for being here. Maybe before we jump in, another little note. We were hoping a bit to have a bit more international panel. We were asking a lot of colleagues. There was a lot of interest, a lot of people who replied very nicely, but some of them had already left, or we learned Wednesday is the day when people are starting to leave Berlinale, or they were the ones saying, this is super interesting. There are a lot of discussions in our individual associations and organizations, but we're not sure what we can say or are allowed to say. So, this is just to say this is a sort of safe space, we hope, because we want to start a conversation also with all of you in the audience. Those three are going to tell us various things, but I invite you whenever you feel like having a direct question to one of those or about the issue in general, don't hesitate to raise your hand or just speak up. We want to have a conversation. And the first one is right there, okay.
Yeah, no, it's just an organizational question. I would like to ask the audience who actually really depends on English language. No, it's
Yeah, very valid question, yeah, thanks. So we stay in English then. All right, Grit, do you want to update us or tell us the background of the initiative and what happened since you all first started talking about it 2 years ago?
Yeah, actually it started with a very personal experience I made, because I've been working in the festival field for almost 3 decades now and more than 20 years as a freelance. And Then I was checked by the social insurance whether I am a real freelance anymore, and only then I got a steady contract. And then I realized that there are like two worlds in this office. There are people with a real contract who, when they catch a cold, they stay at home. They go on vacation, which are paid. When their children are sick, they stay at home. They get an additional payment at the end of the year when the festival was successful. And I've been part of this festival for all those years, and I think that my work was important for the profile of the festival, but I was the creative part, and we who do the creative part, most of us work on a freelance base, and we don't benefit from anything. And only then I started to think about it. Why is it like this? Why do we work all precarious? We can't be sick. Our children, I got 2 kids, and I always worked. When they were sick, when I was sick, I was always working because there was no way to finance our living without working. So, and only then I started to think about it, and that was when I met Ludwig. Ludwig, maybe you show up. Ludwig Sporrer from DocFest Munich 2 years ago at Berlinale, and it was a boring party, and we started to complain about our sad lives. But then we were like, maybe we are just stupid. We complain here with a glass of wine, and why is it like this? Why is there no association? Why? I don't know how it is internationally, but in Germany it is you don't speak about money. And many people think that you must not speak about your salary, which is not true. Even our contracts say that you are not allowed to speak about your salary, which is illegal actually, because there was a trial and a judge who said no, you are allowed to speak about your salary. You are not allowed to speak about the salary about your colleague, of course, but it is very legal to talk about money. And it was when we said, okay, we have to talk about money, we have to talk about our working conditions. Then we met Andrea Kuhn here, Nuremberg Film Festival, and just by the way, she's a festival director herself, so it's not, our initiative is not against festival directors, because they are affected as well. They are also festival workers, and we choose to call our initiative Festival Workers, really to put emphasis on the fact that we do work which should be somehow acknowledged as work also in the society, and that we are citizens like everyone else. We pay taxes, and there are laws in this country, and they should apply on us as well. And then we met Alex Hertwig from DocFest Kassel, who's not here today. And then we started a call on Facebook, and it was like exploding. It was shared hundreds of times. And then Kathleen Eggeling from ver.di trade union, which is the service. How do you call your? It's for artists, but it's also for all service industries. For media, and they immediately contacted us and offered help and support. And then this year, the same year, we had a big meeting in Leipzig. There were around 100 people, and it was a big energy. You were there as well, and it was so, for us, it was really kind of mind-blasting that there was really this energy, and that people said, yes, we have to speak up and to do something. And then a long period of discussion and arguments followed, because then it was the time when we had to decide how to go on and how we want to shape our organization. Do we want to have an association of festival workers, or do we need an association of festivals, or do we go with trade union, which we eventually did. And then we had an online voting, and the majority decided to go with the trade union. There's also a lot of, many people didn't join us afterwards, because the trade union in our field of work doesn't have the best reputation, maybe, because we were always said, what did trade union do for us in the last year? And of course the answer is almost nothing, but there wasn't this connection, but we can do it now as trade union members. And the big advantage for us is that we have Kathleen with such a big know-how that nobody of us knows all these laws, and also if you want to to talk about standards of payment of salaries. Only trade union is allowed to negotiate. So we, as a free association, wouldn't be allowed to negotiate. And so there are many advantages. And the trade union provides a really well-functioning kind of infrastructure. Like we get rooms, there is somebody to organize things. So this is, at the moment, we are trying to find our place within the union, and the next aims are to start a big survey on working conditions, because we need some real facts that are proved. You know that because you're the one
Doing it.
And of course that we want to spread the word about the organization among German festival workers, and to make them aware of that they have rights, that they can resist, that nobody has to take everything, and nobody has to work without contract or has to be fired, you know, so that you can do something about it. But we are still really at the very beginning.
Maybe to contextualize for the international guests also, in Germany, maybe just because I've been looking at it more for the last 2 years since you guys asked me to come to the first meeting. But my perception is in the media industry and film industry, labor issues, labor conditions are a big topic in all areas. So one specific difference here is that it's film festival workers, and it's a very specific problem apart from being part-time, going between festivals, we're gonna come back to that, I'm sure, is also in this field, there is no defined job, right? There is no job description, festival worker, or there is no training to become a festival worker, which is a big difference to, say, a camera person or a director or a producer, which are defined and secured jobs, right? And where it's easier to actually have representation through a union. So this particular point of having a festival worker and define that as a job that has come out of the way festivals have developed in the last 10, 20, 30 years is a very specific part at the same time. And that's why Kathleen is a perfect representative there. It is a part of a larger creative industry development, which is why being housed in ver.di and also with Connex, which is also housing the other creative industry media workers, is important. So maybe that as contextualization. Are there any questions maybe directly to the initiative? Otherwise, maybe we're gonna hear about how working is being done in the Berlinale, and how does that work to build a team? What kind of contracts are there? How is the organization structured? Because for Germany, of course, but also in the larger picture, the Berlinale is very specific because it's a very big organization, it's nationally funded and so on. So that's why it's also very interesting to hear that from your side, more about the background.
Yeah, thank you. As I listen to you, Grit, we are just standing on the, not on the other side, but maybe on the other end of the story. Because we are national funded, it means we had to deal with quite strict regulations, and we are also controlled very strict. So we have to hold these regulations. And it means that most of our employees are they have the contracts according to the public, it's called in Germany TVÖD, Tarifvertrag für den öffentlichen Dienst. this public contract for employees in national services.
Yes, I looked it up. It's the wage agreement for public service.
Yeah, thank you. And it means even if we in Germany don't really speak too much about our salaries, everybody knows, or probably inside of the festival, everybody knows who is working in which so-called salary group, and you can look it up in the internet and in the law books, which group means how many euros at the end of the month. In brutto, it means before taxes. Also, the working times, how many hours we are allowed to work in a day and a week, everything is regulated, which is during the festival not very easy to organize, because of course for some jobs you cannot work in different shifts. If we have some people guiding our guests, you cannot tell the international guest, oh, I'm sorry, my shift is just finished, the colleague will yeah. So it's, I mean, it's very good that we have these regulations, and this is also this is an achievement from the social democracy, and the people were fighting for that, working only 8 hours a day, and have a free Sunday and so on. But we have to deal with it. That's the point. The other point I wanted to mention is. This kind of fluctuation during the year, because of course a festival has to be prepared, and there is festival time like now in Berlin, and after the festival we have kind of wrap-ups and a retreat, but regularly we are working with 50 to 60 colleagues all over the year. And now during the festival we have around 1,200 colleagues here in Berlin working for the festival. And this is a very big difference, and we call it a kind of breathing organization, which is really also a kind of challenge for us, how to get every year the same people getting back to the festival, that we are not forced to make new preparations, new periods of learning how the festival works, because it's always easier to work with colleagues. They know Berlinale, they know the festival hectic or this very, very fast working, and to make very fast decisions. This is also a very special kind of work, and therefore, of course, for us, it's an advantage to work with colleagues. They know us and they know the festival. It would be, especially maybe we will come to this topic later, it would be really good and interesting also for us to have contact to other festivals, to make it possible to have a kind of change, employee changes, or a kind of forum where the festival workers could apply to work for different festivals. Because there's also a special generation who is really interested in working for different festivals in different cities. I know we have also some colleagues worked in Leipzig or in Munich. Yeah. And this is actually or could be for us also a very interesting system.
Yeah, there used to be a fund for that on European level for job shadowing, actually. I think they discontinued that, but that might be a thing to say to them, hey, this would actually be really helpful. Yeah. One thing, when you said the Berlinale is growing a lot, I mean, that's something everybody knows, like even the smaller festivals that are not that well and well funded with stable funding and a big group of year-round people. The big growth makes sense in different positions and different sections of the organizations. What I would find interesting, of the 50 that stay year-round, what kind of positions are those? is that mainly administration? Is that mainly programmers? Is that, you know, like, are there specific jobs that are more in the regulated, secured realm versus some that are might be more precarious?
So maybe I could tell some words to our ideas of organization.
Yes.
So I would say we have 3 big parts of this different kind of jobs. One, really these kind of curatoric, artistic, programmer jobs, and the other part is, as I always tell, are the service departments. Like event management, guest management, but also all the communications, like our press department, marketing communication, sponsorship, also our or my department, administration. And we have a third big part, because we are a part of the Kulturveranstaltungen des Bundes in Berlin. This is a kind of holding for the cultural event from the Federal Republic in Berlin, and we are one part of it, like Haus der Kulturen der Welt, big cultural institution, is another part, and the Berliner Festspiele with different smaller festivals is the third part. And this holding has an administrative head, which is in charge of human resources, IT, logistics, all the legal questions, and also the questions of contracting. And this part, this central part, is not part of the Berlinale, because we are part of the KBB, and the 50, 60 people working for us all the year are not, other way around. The colleagues from the KBB are not meant like Berlinale people. So our colleagues, these 50, 60 persons, are working in different parts. Some of them are programmer, some of them in press and sponsorship and administration, also international relations, program organization, technique. What we don't have in the summer, where no colleagues are working, are guest management, event management, our hotel office. I think these are the biggest departments which are not working in the summertime. And of course, all the other departments have less employees in the summertime. Some departments, so for some departments, there are only 2 people working in the summer and maybe 150 in the wintertime.
Do you want to tell us a bit about the different kinds of contracts you have? We were talking about the specific TVÖD contracts for regular employees and what kind of problems that might create on the organizational side. But when we spoke on the phone, you also mentioned there are also other kinds of contracts, like freelance contracts. And could you tell us a bit more whether there are, you know, just those 2, or are there also different subdivisions of contracts? What kind of different contracts do you have? Who is getting what kind of contract?
Most of the contracts, and I would say like 95% are these contracts with TVÖD, with the state regulations. Then we have contracts, for example, for colleagues working in the cinemas with it's called in German Stundenvertrag. So it's kind of contract where you see how many hours. Sorry, I don't know the English expression for that. So we see how many hours they were in charge, or how many hours they worked, and we pay them also after the TVÖD. hours, which
But you basically pay them by the hour,
by
like
the hour,
actually
exactly,
worked hour.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because in the cinemas we have our programming, and you really see when the film starts, when the cinemas has to start to work, when the screenings start and when the screenings finish. So it's a very clear thing. And we have a very small part of freelance contracts, because we have to deal with really every state regulations, and we have to prove that we are allowed to work with the people, and we cannot make any mistake when the social insurance make any checks and controls. So it's really for us the biggest failure which could happen, and therefore it won't happen ever. And there are some small fields like when we have people, they are writing speeches, or they are writing texts for our catalog, or they make some social media editorial work. But if we have, and we have also some social media colleagues working in our communication department, they have employee contracts.
Yeah, sounds good.
It's not allowed to do it another way, and I know the other probably smaller festivals, it's always a question of the finances. So
yeah, but it's really it really sounds like paradise. This is so much not typical for German festival work, unfortunately. But I think that it's the only festival in Germany that works like this, because that's always the problem of financing, that you can apply, or you have, as a festival, you always have to apply for additional funding, but that means you can apply like at a foundation only for special programs, and then you end up with 20 special programs, but actually you can't apply for funding to pay your staff fairly. This is always the basic funding, and this is always not enough. And if you want to get more funding, then it's always bound to more program, and that's a vicious circle.
I mean, we here also not just to point out the difficulties and look at best practice, but at the same time, now I feel like this all sounds too good. But like, are there any limitations or anything where, for instance, saying you have all these people, they're paid by state regulation, specific tariffs, that sounds all great. What we know from smaller festivals and also internationally is usually that most of the time young people come into the jobs because they get entry-level contracts because that's cheaper for them. It's a great opportunity to make contacts, get into the field of festival or media industry work in general. But I know from other also bigger festivals that they have a problem keeping those people. And you mentioned that it's a big drain to always train new people again and again because the cycle is so quick. Do you have that problem as well, that yes, you have to pay a certain amount, but there's probably not unconditional amount of money to keep raising it, I assume. But so I guess one question would be, what are your possibilities to actually create career trajectories for people? Is there a leeway for that? What can be done in that kind of way?
Actually, the Berlinale is not paradise. Yeah, sorry.
Sadly.
One problem is, as I already mentioned, the changes in the positions. Another problem is that we are in kind of competition also with the film industry, because people tell us, you pay so bad, and these are not the colleagues coming from other festivals, they are colleagues coming from film production, and they telling us, I earn in a week what you pay me in a month, so now I don't have enough time, and I can make the location management for, I don't know, Friedrichstadtpalast or Zoopalast, because I am on the set and I will earn much money. And these are really problems for us, because we have to deal with the knowledge transfer. And that was one of the points which led to the point that we made a new structure. It's called Berlinale Basics, just to try to gather all the information which new colleagues need when they start at our festival, and all the departments has small papers and kind of entrance paper to the festival to have a structure for this kind of training, and also another point is how to make motivation for a general motivation for a team, because Berlinale is a team. I'm working here for 6 years, and I've never worked before in a team which is so motivated than our team, Berlinale. But you have to make a kind of a common motivation or a coherence for everybody. And that was the reason why we started to deal with questions like, why are we doing this? What is our aim? And this led to the discussion in direction mission statement, which is an ongoing process, or still ongoing process. And we are working on it now nearly 2 years, and we have the plan to enact this mission statement in the next 2 months, because it's also very important to have a common basis which we are working on.
That sounds, looking at my colleague from the Hamburg Film Festival, I feel much better now knowing that even the Berlinale needs to do that, and also needs 2 years to create that, and not just little tiny volunteer-run political, socially active festivals.
That's exactly the point, and this is also I see it as a success that we can hold on this topic 2 years, because the people who are here for 6 or 7 months, or even for 3 months, we want to take them with us into the boat, and to make it really together. And it's not enough if there is the core team with 50% and they say yes, it's fantastic, and everybody else is just looking at us and wondering what's happening.
Yeah, that sounds great, and I would also point that out as something that we should probably take along, because that's a bit of the idea of the conversation as well. What are positive ways to deal with working conditions in festivals, and what are kind of like best practice ideas that we all can use and take away? So again, whenever you guys out there in the audience have ideas, experiences, issues, jump in. Otherwise, yeah, good.
I just wanted to add to the system of payment, which is state regulated.
Just quickly, the ones in the back, can you hear her, or should we get a mic? We should get a mic. Oh, yes.
Okay, hello. I just wanted to add to this system of payment, the state-regulated payment over TFÖD, which what I experienced is, well, the good side is that you get your health insurance paid. This is very good. But the classes, the TFÖD, we have these different classes, and I've experienced that it's a very low class. So you have TFÖD 5 and 6, which is for positions with a lot of responsibility, and I experienced also that that festivals, as the Berlinale and others, they like to employ people with a lot of experience and who studied and who take this responsibility. But TFÖD 5, maybe people don't know it. This is a class for people that with no Ausbildung, with no don't need to study or don't have proper like education, a certain level of education, and this is what I found problematic if you are like very long time in this industry. And the other difficulty I find with this contract with the Berlinale you talked about, that are paid by hours. That means if you get sick, you don't get paid. So it's by the hours. It counts by the hours. If I get sick, I don't earn money. So these are the problems I feared. Problems that I experienced during my life working with festivals. So yeah, I wanted to add this to this discussion because you were telling it's such a paradise at the Berlinale for the workers.
I told you it's not a paradise.
Yeah, but these are problems we experience every year. So that's.
I would like to add to TVD that that's really the point, and the two arguments you told us, the experience and your studies. It's not interesting for TVD because TVD, the system is always checking what has to be done. And that's the basis for the definition in which group you land, if it's the 5 or a 6 or an 8. It depends on the job and not on your experience. Yeah, and
yes and no. Like it's correct that it's the ranking is done by the job description basically. So. But we all know the way you can frame the description so that it still doesn't go beyond a certain degree, because in the end we know what kind of money we have that we can give out, so you have to downscale. But in an ideal world, it is true that from both sides you need to look at what is the actual job, what is the actual job description, what kind of experience in real life do those people bring, and is that a rank in the tariff that actually reflects who works there.
And it's also, so I wanted to add, my first TV contract was, or they wanted to give me a contract for a beginner. After 20 years, more than 20 years freelance work, they considered me a complete beginner, because for TV it isn't interesting how long you've been working as a freelance, which is such a nonsense in our industry.
It changed 2 years ago, but you're right, or 1.5 years ago, but in the former time it was not possible.
I mean, I fought and I made it, but it was really a long fight, because I said I won't sign a contract as a complete beginner after 20 years, and for the same job I did before, the same job as a head of a big department, and it doesn't count that you've done this job before. You are a beginner for TVD. It's really nonsense.
So I've been working also on an international level for festivals since 1996 after I finished my studies, and I was never actually offered such a contract at all. I mean, I've been working for Berlinale ages ago, and then that didn't exist, you know. But I was offered once, you know, but that was also because of social security. The festival was afraid that I'm maybe scheinselbstständig. I don't know what that is in English, you know, that I'm not really independent, but you know, fake independent also, which means that the festival needs to pay a social.
And maybe for the international audience, there are big discussions going on in the general freelance and creative industry sector, whether when you actually count as a real freelance person. So if you mainly work for only one employer but on a freelance contract, there has been a big crackdown to say, hello, no, that's not freelance work if you only have one employer, basically. And also the other, which might be a very German thing, I don't know, you, Katli, might know better whether that's true for the international labor laws as well, is this this nice phrase of whether you're weisungsgebunden, meaning someone tells you how and what to work. And that is a very specific thing in Germany, whether you are officially a freelance person, and that goes back to what Adrienne was saying about only 5% being in that artistic, curatorial or editorial work, because there you're hired or kind of commissioned to bring in a certain result. And that is counted as actual freelance work, because the way you do it and how you do it, how long it takes is your problem. You just have to bring in the text. So so that's one of the things that also in Germany is a big discussion: when is the work actually freelance and when should it be paid as an employed position with social security. So just as a background.
Yeah, okay, so then when I was finally offered this nice contract, you know, it was like no money at all, you know. I couldn't, it was not, I mean, it's not because a festival is a bad festival or anything, because there was just no more money. They said, okay, this is the amount we have, you know, and we changed this from a freelance job, you know, into something fixed, but then actually I have to pay all the social security on my side because they're not putting anything in it. Because there is no money for small festival, because it is like that, they're underfinanced, you know. And we counted, there are 400 film festivals in Germany. They're taking like a major part in the distribution. It's changing, the whole market is shifting into event culture, and festivals are part of that, you know. And the festivals I've been working for, a lot of them have an NGO background, you know. It came from some idealistic work, but now they're professionalized. Only the working conditions were never professionalized. And the problem is, you know, that with all those people who have no real contracts, we're not able actually to come up with any union whatsoever, you know, because you're there for 3 months and then you're gone, and there's no way to actually organize anything within this short period of time, especially if you have no real contract, but just, you know, we are freelance in the end of the day, which you are actually not, but you are. And so I thought that this group that we are now initiating here in Germany, this group that is organizing this event, you know, I somehow see it as, what is Betriebsrat in English?
Workers' Council. Workers' Council.
Yeah.
Workers' Council.
So this can be used as it, because there's never enough people in one festival, you know, so I have to put them together from different festivals, you know, in order to have my group. I'm going to meet those people anyway all the time when I visit festivals, you know, so we can, I think that is a really nice idea about it. If you cannot do it in one festival because it's too small, you can put up like 20, 30, 50 festivals together and then have it there, you know. That's what I like about the idea of this initiative.
Thanks. Gib's ihr. How about we come to Daniel? Did you want to reply to that? Yes, please.
I can just add to this, and I think it's also a good start for my part, because what we experienced, not only in Austria, but I think worldwide, is what happened in the past 20 years, is that many festivals were founded, and I say founded, not as a real foundation, if you want, but just people who were really passionate about film and want to present films, and they saw that there's a niche, because lots of films didn't get to the cinemas anymore, like a normal cinema release. So you had a lot of passionate people starting small organizations with no rules in terms of working conditions, in terms of agreements or payments or anything. And the same thing was happening in Austria in the past 20 years, like our festival as well. We started 15 years ago, and it was a student initiative, and we didn't have a clue at all what we were doing there. So, and the first 7 or 8 years, it was all on a volunteer basis. But then to change this from the volunteer basis into a professional organization, this is the difficult step, I think. Not only for the festivals getting more funding and so on, but also to employ people properly and pay proper salaries. So yeah, the reason what Skadi mentioned in the beginning, the reason why we founded this Association of Austrian Film Festivals in 2012 was basically this, to bring the festivals together in Austria, to professionalize the festival landscape, to like exchange ideas and learn from each other, and also then in the end for having a bigger lobby to try to get a better funding for the film festivals. We had 21 members in the beginning from 43 film festivals, or like festivities that called themselves film festivals, but we didn't accept all of them. So we kind of did a minimum, some minimum criteria. So the event should take place at least 3 days, should at least show 15 films. So it was already really minimum criteria. But also, like, there should be a professional projection. The director should be invited, so that there is an exchange between the audience and the filmmakers. And so we tried to make some quality criteria as well. And what we found out soon, like this was quite one of the first steps with the whole association, was that there was a huge amount of work and time invested under extremely difficult financial conditions. But for arguing on a quite professional level, of course we needed some data, we needed some money, numbers, yeah, money as well. But because the study is of course not cheap as well. But the Austrian Film Institute, they were really supportive, and they were also they acknowledged that there was a lot happening, and they also, of course, wanted to see Austrian films presented to an audience. So it was also a lot about where do we see like the national cinema as well, which was which is in Austria not very well received. Anyway, so we started the Austrian Film Festival report. This is this 40-page compilation, and this proved basically two things. Festivals are, even if they're very small or only relevant, like on a local level in a way, they are a success story, and they are realized predominantly under precarious working conditions. So this is, I think, no surprise here. So it may be a bit dry now, but I can just try to summarize a few numbers. So in the end, I also have to say that not all of the 21 festivals wanted to take part in the whole thing, because some of them were also afraid to share the numbers. So this is, of course, also a topic that might apply here as well, because in the last few days we heard a lot of stories of like real bad working conditions at lots of festivals, not only on a payment level but also on an atmospherical level. But I think there's also kind of a fear to share those stories as well. So I hope we still will have the chance to hear some of them here as well. So 17 festivals took part in the end in the whole study. Like there's the success story was that we showed all together the Biennale, the biggest festival, the Diagonale for the Festival for Austrian Film, was also part, like really small scale festivals, like I don't know, the Slash Film Festival for horror films and genre films, or the Tricky Women for animated films for women and from women. So all the festivals that kind of relevant took place. We showed, like altogether, we had almost 300,000 visitors, which is quite a lot. Also for the framework in which we were working, we showed 2,073 films, which is also a lot compared to the 450 maybe that that get a regular cinema release. But then, if we talk about the situation of the employees, yeah, there's the ugly numbers. So we had around we had around 500 people working in the whole festival industry. 463 in the end, like filled out the survey and worked with us. So we noted of these 463 employees, it was 68% women and 32% men, and only 8% of all the employees in Austria are working on a full-time basis. So full-time basis also means like that they are employed. So this took place 2 years ago, the whole study. So or 3 years ago, it changed a bit meanwhile, but actually not really. So most people are working under very precarious conditions. They're either working part-time or freelancing or volunteering, and yeah. For like we heard before, due to this financial situation, of course, half of the employees only work for less than 3 years for film festivals, which means that you have a lot of people that you have to train newly, like every year basically. So yeah, and we also, there was an estimation, a rough estimation, what budget would be needed, or how much higher the budget should be, so that people could be employed properly and get a proper salary. And the proper, I have to add, is like is minimum wage at least. So this is the proper salary. It's not. We're not talking about what highly educated people under really stressful conditions should get. So we're talking about 23% increase based on those numbers that we had. So yeah, it's been, on the one hand, it was really good to have these numbers. We also went out with these numbers, of course, to the funding institutions. They all saw, of course, what is happening, and we tried to change at least a few things. Also. Like, I don't know, basic criteria things, how festivals, like how the fundings should be organized, or how the budget should be done. Like there's I think a few basic things that are still, not working on a very professional level. So, but yeah. Okay, and so we started with, together with the funding conditions, we started to work out new or clear criteria for festival funding, like how that they should show, they should check if the budget shows that people are paid there, because there's lots of festivals. And also some in Austria, and I think lots of festivals international as well, who paid their directors, and maybe 2 or 3 others, and all the rest of the stuff is not paid or working voluntarily. Yeah, and I think there's one big thing that we also tried to at least raise awareness with the funding institutions, was that they should check if there's a good balance between the budget that is available and the effort that is taken. So I think it doesn't make sense, we had this before, to always try to be bigger and make more and more and more, but at the same time the budget doesn't allow it. So I think the one basic thing is, if you can't afford it, then just don't do it. And
thanks. Maybe as one interjection or comment to that is, of course, the funding. It's always a discussion that Grit mentioned at the very beginning already. It's not a fight of the festival workers against their employers or the festivals, but also the festivals are also in a precarious position, and it's, you know, the idea is also to highlight the general work, the labor that goes into that event culture that's growing, and alerting public funders to say, if you want those big events and this kind of culture, it comes at a cost, and there are highly skilled workers doing work there, and hopefully we might be able to hear a few of you how that is how that's going in your respective countries and at your festivals, but in the especially the German, but I guess in larger in the European sector, there is a lot of public funding or at least subsidy going into those institutions, and that is a way to try and deal with that issue and say, if there is public money in it, then there are certain kind of regulations, exactly like Adrienne has mentioned already.
Yeah, the one point are the regulations, and the other point is, but maybe Grit can tell to the topic much more than me, because I'm not really dealing with this public fundings, except of the central funding for us, but sometimes they don't take over any overhead costs. It means if you are paying your personnel, you cannot finance it with the public fundings you get for the programming or artistic work, and that's really a problem. So therefore, it's very good when the trade union is in your working group. But it would be my approach to go also to the politics to make them understand if they want to have this colorful festivals, they have to invest more money. That's the point.
Yeah, I can add on that. We really have to raise this awareness, this awareness with the funders, and I know that there's also an association of film festivals. They started to found something like this, which is not only for festival workers, because we really need also this lobby with the politics. And it's because I'm a member of the Federal Funding Commission for Documentaries, and I think trade unions achieved a lot for film production, because when we get all those applications for film funding, we really check the budget with the commission, and we really look at how do they pay their staff. And it's not only for the people who are like really employed, we also have a look at the camera person, at each position is really checked by this federal funding at least, and if we see that you have a budget and you see this can't be fair, then they don't get it. Then they get a note from the Federal Commission. Please have a look at your funding and you or at your budget. You can apply a second time and also a third time. But with this budget, you won't be able to pay your staff fairly, and then you don't get the funding. And why doesn't that apply to festivals? I don't see the point at all. And it's a shame that Creative Europe is not here. Because they do the same. If you apply for this money, I know it from festivals I've worked with, they count how many films you screen, and they are not at all interested in how your staff is paid. And this has to be changed. Really.
I'm happy to hear that you say you are in the committee and you looked at that, because I was going to mention that. Because in Germany the film funding law has just been changed last year, and there's one little subclause that got included that mentioned that there should be sozialverträgliche Verträge, so socially sustainable working conditions, like Grit just mentioned. And I'm happy to hear that the committees actually look at that, because I know from the FFA, the German film funder, there is no official person like controlling those things. So it's good to know
Yeah,
that apparently the committee themselves, the juries, are aware and to take a look at that.
BKM does it, and I was on a panel 2 months ago where it was also about festivals, and there was a regional funder, and he said, but we are aware of it, and of course our festivals in our county, everyone is paid fairly, and I could only laugh. Of course they are not fairly paid, and then it turned out that they have a look, but only at the employed people. They all get minimum wages. But most or majority of jobs at film festivals is not employed. It's on freelance base, and nobody looks at these people, you know. And there is no minimum wage for a freelancer. It's
So I feel like we've been talking a lot, and you haven't nodded off yet, but it would also be great to hear from some of you. So maybe if you could just do a quick round of where you're actually from and what festivals you work for, that might be interesting already to get a bit of an idea of who we have reached and who is interested in these kind of things. Are you brave enough to say who you are? Enrico, do you want to start? Because I know you.
Okay, thank you, Scotty.
Thanks for volunteering, Enrico.
Yeah. I'm Enrico Vannucci. I'm from the Venice Film Festival. I'm the advisor of short films there. Actually, I need to sign my contract in 2 hours. So yeah, good day. And also I work for Torino Short Film Market, which is a short film market that runs alongside the Torino Film Festival, and we are focusing on short films, and it started just 2 years ago. I mean, it's a really interesting discussion, I would say, because I think there are many issues that are like the same in Italy as well. I know very well the situation in short film festivals. I can tell you that we have like 250 short film festivals in Italy. I would say that 99% of those festivals are made by volunteers only, so nobody gets paid. Even the best ones, let's say, are not organized by people that have a wage. So it's all on volunteer basis. And another thing is like the state funding. It's the money, it's not that much, but they are not awarding the, like, let's say, a few good festivals, but the money are kind of spread. So in a way you get probably like 5,000 euros per year from the state and 10,000 from the region, or like another 5,000 from the city. And with that money, you should try to organize a festival. So it means that if you want to invite a few people from abroad or whatever, you don't have the money to pay people in the festival. And there's a lot of people that does that. I mean, because they have passion, as you know, has been said before. I mean, like many of these events were started from the passion of people, but still I think that personally that it's not a situation that it can be sustainable anymore. I mean, I started that as well. I mean, before working for such big events, I was working in one of small festivals, and I lost a lot of money. I mean, let's say I put a lot of money in those. So, and now the situation with the payment, it's not that good as well. We're not paid as in a good way. We are all freelancing basically, except for a few people that are employed in big institutions, let's say. But we are talking about 5, 6 people that have like indefinite contract. So, and the majority of programmers or like press office or guest office and so on, they are paid just for the number of months. Well, I mean, if you work in like press office or guest, you're paid for the number of months you work for the festival. While if you work in like the cultural side of a festival. So you work in programming. Basically, you got that amount of money and you take it to live it. And I can tell you that in 20 years, the amount of money that those people receive, it's not been like increased. So and while the cost of living has been increased a lot. So yeah, I mean, it's a common situation, I think. But from what I heard here, I mean, like it sounds to me that Germany is a little bit better than Italy with our situation. But still, I mean, like it's kind of the same mess. So I think it's interesting, and it would be interesting, of course, to work also on a European level, to increase, and I mean, like the awareness of people around the festival circuit, and just to talk to Brussels about, oh, we exist. And we do this, and I mean, without us, there is no festivals, and there is no culture, and you need to think about those.
Yes, behind you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Errol from DocuFest in Kosovo, and I'm hearing here that where we inherited our laws from, because the laws in Kosovo were created just after declaring its independence, and most of the laws are very similar. So we are, I think, in the same circle of the things that we are doing. But we are facing a new problem now, particularly in Kosovo. Our laws, subsidies that come from state and from the city, they clearly state that you cannot pay the salaries. So you have to, include all of the subsidies into activities, bringing guests, accommodation, activities, screening films and everything. And in the past, we had this, what we used to call flexible funds, which were the sponsorships. And most of our sponsorships would go into paying the salaries, the decent salaries for people that would be engaged for the festival. The organization is structured in a way that we have to act as an NGO, as a non-governmental organization, because this allows us access to funds for projects that we do throughout the year, which allows us to maintain our staff. So we maintain good people, pay them decent salaries so they can, be on board and not looking out for other jobs because, they have to survive on something. Now, the legislation in Kosovo has passed the sponsorship law, which regulates it exactly the same like subsidies. So we cannot anymore use the sponsorship money to pay salaries as well, which will create a bigger problem for us. I mean, we will maybe have more funds to do activities and everything, but we need people, to manage that. So this is going to be another problem. I mean, we found a solution. We have a lot of merchandise tickets and things, so it's the revenues that we generate throughout the festival, but I don't think that will be enough. So I would like to know how is the sponsorships in different countries.
And there's no awareness in the cultural sector that is actually a problem, that you only have project funding but not any institutional support. They don't realize, or they don't care.
They don't care.
Who else? Where are you all from? Come on, talk to us.
But maybe I can reply to the sponsorship question, because I think this is completely bad, the situation, but my experience with sponsors is that if you acquire a sponsor, they would always want to have something with glamour, red carpet, whatever, at least an award. You can get sponsors for awards. You could have 100 awards at your festival, but of course they are not interested in giving the money for you to pay your stuff fairly. They are not interested. They want something to present their self and their trademark, and so it's difficult. But of course not as bad, because I don't know. There's no law in Germany that would give any restrictions how you spend sponsorship money. I mean, you are free to spend it however you want to, but the bigger problem is to acquire it.
My name is Katja Wiederspan. I work for the Vienna International Film Festival since actually 16 years. And I was never employed but work freelance. And we have a change in the artistic direction of the festival this year, which again raised some crucial questions for me, because I thought about what's going to happen if I leave. Since I'm not employed, basically I don't get any money when I leave, like a Abfindung, and I cannot be on unemployment because, yeah, I'm freelance. And this again, for me, poses a lot of, or raises a lot of issues with regards to our organization, which is the biggest festival in Austria, but is not controlled as the Berlinale, for example, when it comes to working conditions. And yeah, I see I'm the one who is, let's say, the most outspoken maybe in our festival, because I work for 9 months. So I have a fairly okay payment meanwhile, because the fact that I have to sign a contract every year for me meant I will negotiate my salary every year, because I need to have some advantage from being freelance too. And after maybe 10 years, our management got used to that, but therefore I started fighting when I first joined the festival. My concern is a lot how we can, amongst our institutions, create solidarity when it comes to payment issues, because I see everybody's negotiating their individual salary, and this is for me the starting point why I find this initiative so helpful to start this discussion, how can we support each other in that respect, and not just wait and see people fired and take over their jobs and be happy that we get the better salary they had, because I think now there's a lot of competition and no instruments to counter this, because everybody is precarious, which creates a lot of anxiety in the first place.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrea from the Human Rights Film Festival in Nuremberg. I just wanted to respond maybe with some of the steps that we're about to take in this initiative to have something in hand that we can actually all use, and maybe that would be interesting on an international level as well, if we can ever get it off. Because what Daniel said, I think it's very important to have data. So we need to know what the situation is, and we need to be able to present what the situation actually looks like. Because so far nobody cares, and nobody, if you would tell them, they probably wouldn't believe it, or that wouldn't be a big question. So a first step that we're taking now, we just discussed it yesterday, is that we will just very quickly and dirty fill in some data, honorariums for certain things in a database that the trade union is giving us. So at least people can see what is being paid where. What salary or what honorarium do I get if I do a Q&A in Munich, in Leipzig, in Berlin, at this festival, at that festival. So for one thing, it will give everyone at least some idea of where we are in relation to others, and it will also help us very quickly to determine some kind of average that we can compare our own stuff to. Then once we have that, of course we're hoping for the big study that Skadi has to do for us, that we get actual real data. But until then, we can at least get like an average for certain jobs and festivals. So we probably won't be able to cover everything, but maybe programming. Like, is there a fixed amount, or how many euros do you get per film for pre-selection, for example? For programming, how much for Q&As, how much for hospitality services, how much for press. And then if you have an average, at least we can look at that and see, is that enough? The assumption being, no, it's not. But this will give us something to work on. And I think this is, once we have that, we can also, of course, share on an international level, at least for now on a European level, so that we at least know where we stand. Or if somebody wants to change jobs, to know where you have better conditions, if there is such a place. So these are some of the steps that we're trying to take to actually have the data that we can then use to lobby in the political realm, but lobby with the funders as well. Also, of course, lobby towards individual festivals, but this is really, they're not really the persons we're talking to, it's the people that give money. So that what Errol said, that this doesn't happen, and there's an awareness that all the things we're doing, highly skilled, because when we first met, we were about 80 people working for German film festivals. There was not a single one without an academic degree. There's not a single one that doesn't at least speak 2 languages, but most of them 3 or however many. So that there's this huge group of people that people need to be aware of in the work that we do. So defining the work and then finding out how much people are actually being paid will be the next step.
So we're some people from Sweden here working for different film festivals. I work at Gothenburg Film Festivals, and otherwise I work in-house in an art cinema. I'm a technician. So I think for me the big question is, of course, about salary, but when you're employed by a festival, also what you're supposed to do and the time that you have. Like, even if you're offered a decent salary, you're often given a really short time to prepare and set up everything that is needed to be done. And there's not enough staff to do it. And since everybody protects their own interest, I also want to say, like, we have a lot of discussions about technical staff at festivals and also at cinemas nowadays, because that changed when digitalization came. So please think about that in all the discussions.
My name is Adam. I work for the Gothenburg Film Festival as well, 6 weeks a year. One of my duties is to hire projectionists. About 20 people are hired every year. And I have a question for the Berlinale and for you others. If you hire your own projectionists, or if you rent a cinema with the technical staff included.
Actually, we even invite projectionists from all over Europe, because it's such a big amount on screenings, as you know, during the festival and during European film market, that we really need everybody.
We hire our own as well, only because I think, especially with short film festivals, it's sometimes a bit more tricky. I mean, nowadays maybe not anymore, because with DCP it's got a bit easier. But especially if you show analog films and many copies, then it's going to be quite difficult for an unexperienced projectionist.
Hello, I would like to say something in our European international context. My name is Ola. I'm running German-Polish Czech festival, where I'm touch a bit with 3 national systems. And well, I think we have so many issues here which are necessary to change. And I think we need really European lobby also because we are not just making culture, we are also part of the industry, and the funds, national funds, are giving money, most the money for the production, but we are part also of the releases, economical part. Festivals are also giving money to the filmmakers on the end. We are also paying screening fees. So if you try to, because I think the politicians are more this economical part, this culture is, okay, you are doing this, it's nice to have you, culture is colorful and nice. But if we try to talk with them, because we are also giving money on the end, it could be a reason. I don't know how to do this lobby work in European Union altogether. I have no idea, but I think it would be good if we try to start.
On that note, I'm making a little mailing list sheet. If anyone wants to stay in direct contact to, maybe start collecting issues and having ideas of maybe discussing these issues further at other festivals maybe, or, just collecting data, best practice ideas, whatever. It might be easiest to just write that down now, even though all of you are on a, good.
Our trade union already has it.
Very good.
Wow.
So
you see, it makes sense to go with the trade union.
So it's on the top at the exit? Okay, so sign in before you leave if you want to stay in contact with us.
I think what you mentioned is really important. I think that the survey that we're trying to do is also to figure out how much money brings a festival into a city. So how much, if they fund €1, how much is getting into the city because of other things like hotel costs and restaurant and so on, like really on an economical level. But what you mentioned, I really want to make a point on this because now we have some international colleagues here, why don't you organize such an event at Göteborg Film Festival and invite some international colleagues, if you have any, who are coming in, I think it's really a good idea to just, because we're trying to organize this and that, but in the end of the day, it's a very small group who are really active at the moment, and we are now looking out for more people to join this, and it would be really helpful to join the union, really, so we can use our network in a proper way. And but on an international level, I think even on a national level, it makes really sense to organize shit somewhere, and then we all come, or who is already there, and keep on this debate, because we don't need it just one time a year at the Berlinale. We need it everywhere, all the time, so that every funder is going to be at some point aware of it.
And maybe since we were talking about funders, and Grit was saying, why isn't the European Union or European Commission here? We did talk to them. They are just not in town anymore, at least not the people responsible, or they are at other events right now. But I was talking to them about a different study on European festivals and what they weren't interested in the study we wanted to do, but things they were interested in was collaboration networks, actually, between festivals. That's the thing that they talk about, which is also why I knew about that shadowing idea. So maybe that might actually be a way in to say, hello, there is a certain kind of network going on, and there is an issue, and that's brand new and great, and jump on that. So we just need to talk to the right people, maybe.
Yeah, I just want to add, because knowledge is power. I was at a small meeting of film festivals that were invited by the EU Commission to talk about
Monday.
It was on Saturday on festival networking, because they're preparing the new laws and regulations for the new funding round from 2020 onwards, and it might not be that surprising. The question of fair payment didn't come up, but of course what they understand from networking European film festivals, it's still a little bit in the old mold. They see us as a service industry for the European film industry, right? They don't see festivals as a culturally important event. So what they're interested in networking, it pretty much comes down to that we share European products and pay for European products so that the European products, that is films, make more money. I try to push the point a little bit that I do think that we're valuable cultural events, and I think that festivals have a value in themselves, and that should be acknowledged also in the funding structures. And I also mentioned that my festival, for example, we're part of many networks, but we don't profit from these networks directly because they're not for profit. They're for knowledge sharing and for collaborations. That puzzled them a little bit. So I'm just saying, right now they're working on that, and what maybe one of the good things, and which would be maybe important to more festivals, the issue was raised that this question of the added value that they're looking for in communities or in countries produced by film festivals. This is something that they understood, and they seem to be interested in, and they promised that they might develop tools so that individual festivals could determine their own added value wherever they're happening in their city or stuff like that. So there might be at least that part might be covered in the future, that they would develop something that we could use to even determine how much, again, money we are bringing to communities and cities.
I could add on also to what Ola said. I think it is really about raising awareness, and this works through publicity. You talk to the public, make it known that that it is work. Found national groups like we did. It's not you have Facebook, you have social media. It's at least the beginning is easy. I wouldn't say that. But yeah, you have to do that, and then really it is really about. I know. Yeah, it is really about raising awareness about fairness. You know, because Ola also mentioned screening fees. Like 10 years ago, nobody would have talked about screening fees. Nowadays, it's very normal. We had this big discussion within the festival circuit about screening fees, yes or no. I think it's almost decided that it's a yes for screening fees. So it's normal now to talk about screening fees. And if we talk, we should somehow have like a trademark for fair festival. This is a fair festival and this festival isn't fair. Like we all didn't buy fuel at Shell stations when they had a bad reputation, or we didn't go to buy at Lidl's when they had a bad reputation. Why shouldn't it be possible to do the same with festival? We have the press, at least in Germany. We had a big press, many reviews, many interviews. We were on cultural radio and newspapers. There's a big interest, but you have to say it. You have to say it loud, and I think we can really raise this awareness, and then the funders will also listen. But we really need the publicity, and we also had the idea with Ludwig, because last week we were at award, a fair film. There's a fair film award in Germany, which is given to production companies. They do a survey, Crew United. It's an association of kind of film people in Germany, and they do a survey at all German film productions, and the people are asked how fair the production company is. And then there were 3 nominees for series and drama, and there will be a documentary fair film award in Munich this year. And we had the idea, why don't we have a fair festival award? You don't have to start with the bad examples, but maybe this best practice. This, you know, it can be positive. So Berlinale. No, I mean, but first, of course, you have to ask. I could only name festivals that shouldn't get this award.
Yeah, but the idea behind is to say encourage looking at it in a positive way and not just in a negative way, and encourage people to look at the issues. And the background of the Fair Film Award by Crew United is also great because it's directly judged by the people involved in the individual productions. It's no outsider gossip, it's the industry itself looking at the productions they are involved in. and that might be an interesting idea, at least, right?
Hi, my name is Maria, and I worked in Sweden for several before for several festivals. Just to make a link between everything that had been said and what you just said, I believe, but maybe it's really personal, I'm not sure. I believe that one part of the problem is that I don't know how to start saying that, but for example, for one festival that I've worked, the festival director told me, I'm a film programmer, that I should be honored to be working as a film programmer. And so, like you said before, one of you from Torino, I think, that take it or leave it, you'll get this job because, well, you should be honored. So take this, and even though you got less money than someone who was working at McDonald's, for example, and it's true, and even though I'm really well educated, I've had almost 10 years experience now, but still. So I think this is part of the problem too, that I totally agree this is a dream job. I totally agree it sounds like really glamour and nice to be paid for watching films, curating, chasing films all around the world and all that, but this is a real work. This takes a lot of time and also personal time. And there is still this mentality that we should be honored about that, and I really don't agree with that. So yeah, I think it's part of the problem.
And it's a typical creative industry thing about this tightrope. On the one hand, you want to speak out, and on the other hand, you're very reluctant to say, I'm going to leave, right?
Thanks. I'm Italian, but I live in the UK, and I'm a representative of the Cambridge Film Festival. And my story actually wants to add to what you've just said. And it is not with my festival that can pay me only on a freelance basis, as it's a charity. And so I share the same problems that have been exposed so far. But what I like about your initiative is not just that we want, of course, to raise awareness of the fact that we are skilled and we are doing a major cultural operation worldwide via film, which for me has always been the most important source of education. But also, I think that this initiative is crucial in the way in which I hope that can actually get into the ears and into the mentality of people who come from festivals, who are very strong festivals, who have funds and so on. And yesterday I had a really bad experience because I was speaking to a senior programmer from a festival from another continent. And I was pitching what I've been doing until now, what are some of my curatorial ideas. And then at some point she asked me, do you expect to be paid? And frankly, I froze, just because I was thinking, in 2018, I'm still hearing this kind of question. You see, I'm a part-time lecturer at the university. Again, I don't have a permanent contract, but so I've been having quite a few jobs over the past few years, editorial jobs and so on, and never, like in the film industry, I've heard that this comes as the norm. But then at the same time, I know that this same person speaking to somebody else will never dare to ask the same question. So there is also this unfairness, this type of hierarchy, whereby people assume that they can humiliate you, because I think a question like this is humiliating. And I hope that this initiative that maybe we can all collaborate with in different ways will help also, at least people, they may think what has been said to me yesterday, but they will not dare to say it any longer. And also, this kind of behavior will not be perpetrated also on the pay scale.
May I also say something? My name is Tom Parman. I work since last year. I work in China with a festival. So there, of course, conditions are totally different than they are here. But first of all, I want to thank you for your initiative because I really think it's important. But I think what my basic idea or what my basic goal is, what I always, I mean, I worked not only in China. Before that, I worked a lot in Europe, in Sweden, in Germany, in Russia, in Latvia, with different festivals. And but I always find it very giving to see how other cultural institutions or other cultural events, how they are organized and how we can compare us with them. Because I don't think it makes any sense on picking on who has more money. Of course Berlinale has more money than Regensburg or Hamburg, because it's simply different status. And I do believe Berlinale is the best festival in the world, by the way, but that's totally different, it's not relevant. But I think we should compare there, because there we see, for instance, look at what other cultural events, how they are financed, and how the state always, or the state, or not only the state, but those who give the money always hide them, their ideas or their not their ideas, but their reasons for not supporting a film festival simply because it's lower status. They say, you have culture, you have real culture, which is theater or music or whatever, and film is just film, you know, it's nothing.
Hello. I used to work for the Stockholm Film Festival, but now I moved to Berlin, and I recently started for a network actually connecting museum organization and museums in Europe. And it's very beautiful to hear you start talking about this initiative here to connect festivals and together work for more funding from EU level and so on, which is what this network that I work for do every day, basically. So I wish you all the luck, and I hope to see something happen from this. Yeah.
That sounds like a good closing remark, almost, unless there are more direct questions or calls to action. I would just say thank you to the three panelists, and also thank you to everybody who came, who stayed, who spoke with us. I would say stay in touch, and really let's try to not only continue the discussion in Germany, but also in Europe and internationally. So stay in touch, and thank you.